Hey everyone, so I finished playing the game Gnosia. I took a look at the first 20 minutes, half an hour on March 8th, and after doing that I went and played it in my spare time. I would just play it in bed for like an hour, 2 hours before I went to sleep at night, and it was awesome. Unfortunately, my John's Watch video was not very indicative of what the full game was like. It's always a bit of a risk with that format, the first impressions format. You never know if it's going to properly represent what the game is. And like it gave you a good vague idea, like there was going to be story, and it's going to be like a werewolf kind of game. But there was like a little bit more to it, not too much, but just a couple more things I would have liked to have shown off in that first video, but I can talk about them now. So obviously, because this is a visual novel, it's very story driven. So I'm not going to do any spoilers at all. I'll just talk vaguely about the story, mostly talk about the gameplay. Overall, I played it for about 15 hours, is what my Nintendo Switch says. And that was as long as it took for me to beat it. People say it has a true ending. I always associated the phrase true ending with being the main ending of multiple endings. Gnosia only has one ending, so I think it's just the ending of the game, true or otherwise. So yeah, after 15 hours, finished it, and you've got like 3 save files, so you could start another new game if you want. I don't think there's much replayability. You can play around more in your own save file, but I don't think there's much point in starting a brand new one. But anyway, the main idea of the game is you play games of werewolf, basically, and everybody has their own roles. I don't actually know what the roles are called in like actual werewolf or mafia, but presumably they match up. There's the guard duty role, which is they're a guaranteed innocent, they can't be Gnosia, and there's always 2 of them per game, so if you say those right at the start, bam, that's 2 innocents you've got figured out. There's also the engineer role, who can investigate a single person per night, and it'll tell them if they're either Gnosia or human. There's also the AC follower role, which is a human, but they side with the Gnosia. So an engineer can investigate them, find out they're human, but they could still be evil. So that changes things up a little bit. There's also the doctor role, which they are able to check whether the person who was put into cold sleep, that's like the person who got voted off, whether that person was human or Gnosia. And then finally there's the bug role, which is a very interesting, unique role, and they win the game if they can stay alive and have all Gnosia put to cold sleep. So they have to just stay alive and be with other humans for them to win. So hopefully all those roles made sense. If you haven't played the game, I'll have 1 or 2 full games on in the background here. Something that was brought up in the first video, but I didn't get to actually show off, was the skills system. When I started the game, I got to assign various skills to my character, like any character creator, like a D&D character creator, you know, give yourself charisma and stuff like that. And so as you play the game, as you finish these games of werewolf, you gain XP at the end of the game. Whether you win or lose, I assume you get more XP if you are on the winning side at the end of it, but I never felt like I was lacking for XP, so I never took much notice whether I was getting more for winning or not. And then when you level up, you can put points into any of those skills that you got to choose from at the beginning, and they basically just affect how the rounds of werewolf go. And at the start, when you don't have many skills, the game is really, really difficult. Because you have like low charisma and charm and stuff like that. You can basically say something at the wrong time in a round and suddenly everyone will doubt you and they'll vote you off right away, even though you haven't done anything. If you don't say enough, you can get voted off. If you speak too much, you can get voted off. If you agree with the wrong person, you get voted off. It's very hard at the start. But then as you go through the game, and definitely towards the end of the game, when you've got very high levels in all of these skills, the werewolf part becomes very easy. Basically by the end, I had all the skills in level 30 at least. I think I was like level 115 or something like that. And at that point, you can basically dictate how the werewolf games go. Basically, because you're like so charismatic and stuff, you can choose anybody. You can say, oh, I doubt this person, and just everybody dogpiles on them and votes them out instantly. If somebody tries to doubt you, you can use the retaliate skill, and then everybody turns around and dogpiles on them. It's very funny. And that's not really a problem, because by the end of the game, you just kind of want to get through these games of werewolf. And because you've also struggled quite a bit at the start, it's nice to be able to kind of just like glide through the later games. Now the story is delivered in a very interesting way. Basically, each night between rounds of werewolf, like when the Gnosia is going to be killing a human, and the engineer picks who they want to investigate and things like that, you have a chance of character events triggering, and basically to get to the end of the game, you have to witness every single character event. And some of them have specific criteria for how they happen. Like one of the last ones I got was, you just have to have these 3 specific characters in the game, and they have to be alive that night, and that's how you see one of these events. Some of them you have to do specific actions. One of the hardest ones that I missed for ages was you have to cover, which is like the opposite of doubt in the werewolf games. You have to cover one character, go see them at night, say like, yeah, you're cool, then cover them again the next day, and then go see them that night again. And that's how you get their events. So some of them were quite tricky to get. I managed to see most of the events without having to look up a guide. Towards the end, I just wasn't getting any events anymore, so I had to check out probably about like 5 or 6 events. I just wasn't able to figure out myself. But you can quite easily play through the majority of the game without having to look up a guide. And that's really the game. It's quite simple when you kind of boil it down to that. It's you play rounds of werewolves, you see character events, you see all the character events, and you unlock the end of the game. And that's it. But it really was a wonderful game. Like I said, it took me about 15 hours to finish it completely. A very cool thing is that once you've beaten the game, you unlock a new feature called Load, where when you're playing the werewolf games, you can load to any stage in that werewolf game. Like you could, you know, if you're in night 3 or something, you could jump back to the start of day 2 or something like that. So that's pretty cool. It does mean there's a little bit of replayability if you just want to play the werewolf games. And the story was really cool. It's like, at times it was very vague and mysterious and like almost Lovecraftian. And at other times it was a bit more in your face, and like both parts of that were really cool to me. Especially even as somebody who doesn't like sci-fi very much, I really enjoyed the story of this game. So there you go, those were my final thoughts on the game Gnosia, which I played on Nintendo Switch. Overall, really liked it. I really like my visual novels. This was definitely not as relaxing as some visual novels I've played, because especially when you're under-leveled, you have to think very logically about who is the killer and stuff like that. But still, thoroughly enjoyable. Really liked it. Thank you guys very much for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!